The garden that does nothing yet feeds you for 20 years. How a forgotten wood-buried method solved watering, fertilizer, and drought. Every fall we make the same mistake. We cut, pile, and burn branches that could quietly water our gardens for the next 2 decades. In one afternoon, we erase stored rain, slow-release nutrients, and free heat from the soil. And then, a few months later, we complain about drought, fertilizer costs, and tired land. The truth is uncomfortable. We already had the solution, and we walked away from it. This is the story of the so-called lazy garden, a system that waters itself, feeds itself, and keeps producing long after most beds burn out, not because of technology, hoses, or chemicals, but because of buried wood doing what forests have always done best. Why burying wood changes everything. In nature, nothing grows on bare dirt. Forest soil is built on fallen trees, branches, leaves, and, time. When wood is buried under soil, it does not rot uselessly, it becomes infrastructure. As fungi and microbes break it down, the internal structure of the wood turns into a maze of pores that soak up rain and snowmelt like a sponge. Heavily decayed softwood can hold more than 5 times its own weight in water. Even dense hardwoods hold 2 to 3 times their weight. That water does not evaporate. It sits underground, protected from sun and wind, slowly releasing moisture upward to plant roots. In the middle of summer, when flatbeds dry out and crack, a wood-filled mound still holds 40 to 60% soil moisture below the surface. That is not theory. That is measured reality. This is why gardens built this way survive heat waves without hoses. The water is already there, locked underground, waiting. The hidden heater beneath your plants. Water storage is only half the story you know. As wood decays, it produces heat. Microbial decomposition is exothermic, meaning it releases warmth. In cold climates, soil above buried logs can be several degrees warmer than the surrounding ground. That warmth really matters. Seeds germinate earlier in spring. Roots keep growing when nearby soil shuts down. Frost arrives, but plants above decomposing wood are buffered from sudden temperature drops. In autumn, crops keep ripening weeks longer than expected. This is how fruit trees can thrive in places that should be too cold for them. You are not creating a raised bed. You are creating a microclimate. Why does the fertility last for decades? Well, modern gardening, it teaches us to feed the soil constantly, compost, fertilizer, amendments, then you just repeat it every year. But you see, buried wood flips that model on its head. Hardwood logs, they take about 15 to 20 years to fully break down, and during that time they release nutrients slowly and steadily. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and even trace minerals are unlocked gradually, matching plant demand instead of overwhelming it. So, there's no boom and bust cycle here, no sudden flush followed by depletion. As the wood softens, it actually becomes a scaffold for fungal networks. These fungi, they transport nutrients upward to roots. Bacteria step in, converting complex compounds into plant-available forms, and then earthworms move in, tunneling through the decaying wood and leaving behind castings richer than any bagged fertilizer you could buy. The longer the bed exists, the better it gets. This is not maintenance-heavy gardening. This is soil investment. The mistake that ruins most first-time builds. Buried wood has one weakness early on: nitrogen hunger. As microbes begin breaking down carbon-rich wood, they temporarily pull nitrogen from the surrounding soil. If you ignore this, plants will yellow, stall, and struggle in the first season. The fix is simple, but it must be done correctly. Every gap between logs must be packed with nitrogen-rich material. Fresh grass clippings, green leaves, kitchen scraps, fresh manure, or diluted human urine all work. This is not optional, it is structural. If you're using urine, the correct dilution is 1 part fresh urine to 10 parts water. For example, you want to mix 1 liter of urine with 10 liters of water, then pour it directly over the wood and green material before you cover it with soil. This provides immediately available nitrogen and, it helps prevent deficiency in the first year. Once this step is done correctly, the nitrogen problem just disappears permanently. So, how do you build it without heavy machinery? You actually do not need to dig trenches or remove grass, just start directly on top of the ground. Alright, so first, you want to lay down the largest, oldest, most rotten logs you can find. Hardwood is ideal here because, it just lasts longer. Oh, and make sure to avoid cedar, walnut, eucalyptus, or any treated wood, since these can actually inhibit plant growth. Now, stack those logs tightly together. Be sure to fill every gap with smaller branches and twigs. This whole structure really needs to be dense, because any air pockets can turn into sinkholes later on. Next comes the nitrogen layer, and honestly, this is where most people fail. You need to pack fresh green material aggressively into every crevice. Grass clippings, manure, composted kitchen waste, or even that diluted urine solution. All of these belong right here. Once packed, go ahead and cap the mound with at least 12 inches of soil, then, just finish with a layer of mulch. Be sure to water deeply during the first season only. After that, honestly, the system pretty much runs itself. So, why did this method disappear? Well, this technique wasn't forgotten because it failed. It was abandoned because, frankly, machines hate uneven ground. As agriculture became mechanized, flat fields turned into a necessity. Tractors and harvesters, they require smooth surfaces, mounds, terraces, and buried wood. They all interfered with efficiency that's measured in acres per hour, not resilience per decade. Brush piles were burned instead of buried, fields were leveled, soil lost its internal reservoirs, irrigation and fertilizer replaced natural storage and slow release. What was gained in speed was lost in stability. Why it matters now more than ever: water restrictions are increasing, fertilizer prices continue to climb, heat waves arrive earlier and last longer. Gardens that rely on constant inputs are fragile by design. A wood-based bed turns waste into insurance. Every buried branch becomes stored rain. Every rotting log becomes future fertility. This is not nostalgia, it is practical resilience. Once built, these beds reduce watering dramatically after the first year. Many gardeners stop irrigating entirely by year 2. Soil stays cool, damp, and alive through summer. Crops suffer less stress, which means fewer pests and diseases. This is why the method appeals to both frugal growers and, honestly, so-called lazy gardeners. Do the hard work once, and let biology handle the rest. Alright, so let's talk about some common mistakes to avoid. Using fresh green wood without enough nitrogen is just asking for early failure. And, honestly, if you skip that nitrogen layer, you're pretty much guaranteeing disappointment. Using allelopathic or treated wood, well, that just poisons the whole system, and if you end up building loose piles, those are just going to collapse as the mound settles. So, it's worth doing it right from the start. Expecting instant perfection, well, that just ignores the fact that this is a long game. The second year is always better than the first, the 5th year, that's even better than the second, and by the 10th year, that's where the magic becomes undeniable. This is a system that, really rewards patience. We forgot because this kind of gardening does not sell products easily. It doesn't require constant buying. It doesn't depend on weekly intervention. It asks us to trust slow processes in a world that's, obsessed with speed. Buried wood works quietly, no branding, no instructions printed on bags, just physics, fungi, and time. And yet, it solves the 3 problems gardeners complain about most: water, fertility, effort. The garden that remembers. A garden built this way does not need to be babysat. It remembers every branch you buried, every leaf you returned to the soil. Long after the work is done, the system keeps paying you back. Instead of burning brush this fall, bury it. Instead of fighting drought, store rain underground. Instead of feeding soil endlessly, build soil that feeds itself. If this kind of deep practical gardening speaks to you, make sure you subscribe to Farm Basic for more real-world techniques that actually work. Share this with a fellow gardener who is tired of watering every day. The more of us who remember this method, the harder it is to forget again.